Me in general over the past few years, you know that I talk a lot about the subject of young women and how difficult it can be as a young girl growing up in this society. I am convinced, I stand by my assessment that it is more difficult to be a young woman in the world than it is to be a young man for a lot of reasons. It's just more awkward. Growing up as a woman, everything about being a woman in the experience, it takes a while until we feel like we can properly find our footing, especially as a teenager. There's so much teenager angst. Does he like me back? Do I look okay? Am I pretty enough? Am I smart enough? All of these things kind of go hand in hand. I spent some time this weekend and finally got around to watching the Britney Spears documentary. It's called Framing Britney Spears. You might have heard about it, you might have seen it. There's definitely been a movement that has launched because of it called #FreeBritney. I watched the documentary and I was appalled and I was shocked. I felt so incredibly sad for Britney Spears. I really did. The documentary kind of goes back and it shows you how while she was very young, she was manipulated in front of cameras because people wanted clicks. They made revenue off of her. They attempted to essentially draw blood from her to make her upset and to make her cry. Particularly, there was one interview that is given by Diane Sawyer where the entire purpose of the interview is to make Britney Spears sad, to make her cry. It works. She makes Britney Spears break down into tears as she tells her that there's a parent out in the world that wishes she could shoot Britney Spears. She asks her, how does that make you feel to know that there are people that just want to shoot you? The idea was you're such a disgusting display of what it means to be a woman that there are people in the world who just wish you were dead. And Britney Spears, a very young, vulnerable girl at this time, her career started when she was a young teenager, bursts into tears and says that makes me very sad. And Diane Sawyer looks at her, stony face, she looks at her and looks like she's content, knowing that she had fulfilled her duty to break Britney Spears. It wasn't just Diane Sawyer who participated in this, it was all of society. They wanted to see her have a mental spiral. People loved it. Of course, I was very young during this time. I'm 8 years younger than Britney Spears. And I looked at this documentary and I thought to myself, where were the adults in the room? Why did adults allow this to happen? Why didn't adults say something? Why didn't someone stand up and say, hey, what you're doing here is really wrong, Diane Sawyer. What you're doing here is really wrong, tabloids. You're trying to break the spirit of a young girl. Many can argue that they were successful in breaking her spirit. Which leads me to Chrissy Teigen. If you've been following me on social media over the last week, you have seen that I have led an effective campaign for people to examine the long history of abuse that Chrissy Teigen has enacted against young women. I'm not talking about mean tweets. I don't want this to get mixed up, people to go, oh, well, people have to toughen up, it's mean tweets. No, I am talking about Chrissy Teigen's pointed harassment and attempt to convince young teenagers to commit suicide. I'm talking about suicide. I'm asking the question, how is it possible that for so long she has attacked young women like Courtney Stodden? If you don't remember Courtney Stodden was a 16-year-old girl who married a 51-year-old girl and became a 51-year-old man, and became a celebrity virtually overnight because she was effectively being groomed and the cameras couldn't look away. And during that time, Chrissy Teigen, then approximately 26 or 27 years old, an adult woman who was dating an A-list celebrity, engaged to an A-list celebrity, slid into her DMs and told her she should just commit suicide. She publicly said the same, by the way. She publicly said to Courtney Stodden via tweet that she fantasizes about her being dead. She fantasizes about her being 6 feet in the ground. She called it a dirt nap. This was fine. For years, Courtney Stodden has been speaking out, saying that this woman, while I was young and vulnerable, tried to convince me to kill myself. And it turns out Courtney Stodden wasn't the only one. She also did this to Lindsay Lohan. Mocking 2009, Lindsay Lohan had a real suicide attempt. She slit her own wrists. Chrissy Teigen thought that was funny. She told her she likely slits her wrists some more every time she sees Emma Stone, another A-list redheaded actress. I guess that's funny. Mocking the attempted suicide of a young woman. It goes on and on. She told Sarah Palin that she should shoot herself in the face. This has been allowed. I don't know why it's been allowed, because apparently there have been no adults in the room. So I challenged myself now. I can't go back for Britney, but I challenged myself now to be the adult in the room and to speak out and to say, this is unacceptable. We're not talking about bullying. We're not talking about cancel culture. What I'm calling for is accountability culture. I'm calling for consequence culture. I'm calling for a time where it's no longer acceptable to just be an A-list celebrity and be allowed to get away with everything. For too long, being a celebrity has meant never having to say you're sorry. Not anymore.